We are live for another special episode with Siddharth Mehra, who's joining us from Boston. Siddharth, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm doing way better than I was doing last weekend. I can tell you that much.
What a night, what a pulsating London derby, and Arsenal 2-0 winners over Chelsea. They needed that win, that crucial win that for the Gunners, who
Yep.
are 3 point are now just 3 points behind Chelsea, and with United winning their game, it was a much needed win for the Gunners and a most important win for the Gunners for the race in the top four. Well, going straight to you, Siddha, your thoughts on the game. I know you've prepared notes.
No, I was just me from I like looking at the game from a tactical standpoint, so I have some notes on that. But I had zero expectations from this game. We had a lot of we were in the news again in midweek because
Hmm.
of the whole Sven Mislintat situation,
Yeah.
and we'll address that later on in the podcast. But again, another unwanted distraction for the players. I thought that it would end up being. End up being similar to the West Ham game. At best we might get a draw, and that was it for any top four chances. But kudos to Unai Emery. I mean, he got the tactics spot on. He was able to motivate the players. He got the
Yeah.
defense, completely airtight. I mean,
Hmm.
nobody expected. If you were going to tell me that we were going to play a 4-4-2 diamond, with like Xhaka at the base, Torreira on the right of the diamond, Guendouzi on the left of the diamond,
Hmm.
yeah, and Ramsey as the 10. I would probably only have like picked Ramsey as a 10. I would have said that Torreira would have been at the base of the diamond and stuff. So
Hmm.
that completely caught Chelsea unawares.
Hmm.
And I think we had Ozil on the bench, so all the Ozil controversy was at least kind of it died down for a bit.
A bit, yeah.
But great work by the team. I can only think of that Pedro chance, that lob that he had, where
Hmm.
I think
Hmm. Hmm.
Kolasinac was caught
After you went 1-0 up.
playing him,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
playing
correct.
onside. But other than that, we just didn't allow any shots. I mean, like our issue has been we've kind of scraped by wins, but
Mm,
we've
mm,
allowed like high
mm,
quality shots, and the keepers
mm.
have saved it, or there's been bad finishing. But today was a watertight, airtight defensive performance
True, true.
from the back four. So kudos to Unai Emery. Chelsea just played right into our hands. He did a couple of things today which I'm very impressed with. Jorginho, in the first game that we played them at Stamford Bridge,
Yeah.
was completely dominated that game. Right, he was not marked by anybody. He was spraying passes all over the pitch. And they're playing Ramsey at that number 10. Also, more than being a creative player, he was there. He marked Jorginho out of the game.
Mm,
Jorginho
mm,
had you couldn't breathe.
mm.
So then you have Kovacic and Kante, neither of who are very good workhorses. Right, in the Premier League, I expected Kovacic to be more of a ball carrier, Wilshere type of player, but he's been a huge flop. And I've said this before on FIOB and stuff. Like, even Guendouzi's having a better season than Kovacic, and I know the Chelsea fans will come at me for that, but I'm here.
I read
I'm
a few
here.
comments. Yeah, I read a few comments.
Yeah,
Good.
and
Yeah.
Kante can't be that creative player for them. And what we did with that diamond was then kind of allowed them to have the ball on the wings,
Mm.
and cross the ball in. But who are you going to cross it into if you're going to play Eden Hazard as a striker or as a false
Yeah.
nine?
False nine. Yeah.
Right, so we kind of eliminated that build up through the middle, and when gave them the wings, and then when they crossed it in, we took care of the crosses. So very impressed today, very happy. This is what we wanted, these
Yeah.
kind of performances in big games. I mean, I know even under Arsene we had some wins over Chelsea, and he had Conte's number a little bit.
Yeah.
but we never had this kind of adaptability under Arsene. Under Arsene, I don't think we've ever played a 4-4-2 diamond, to
It used to
adapt
be
to a game and
it
stuff.
used to be a 4-2-3-1 always, and
Correct. And then if it
irrespective of
came off, it
whatever.
came off. If it didn't come off,
Yes.
it you were typical Arsenal. So
Correct, exactly. 4-2-3-1, and I remember the 3-0 win, but then the 2-2 draw. But
yep,
the formation and the adaptability, we've got that under Emery right now, and
yep,
that's what we discussed last week. If you remember, that key point where you said that I want to see a style, a process, something that is, he's going to take it forward. I don't want to see different things. I want to see something good, something concrete, and we did this against Spurs. We in the
yep,
second half, and we've done it now. Well, there are a lot of talking points, and Koscielny had that one of his best games, the best game probably in so many
yep.
years. After that horrific injury last season against Atletico, and then missing the World Cup, life has come full circle for Koscielny. But he looks a bit lean, like he can't play week in week out. I'm very
Correct.
happy that he performed last night. But what's your take on the Koscielny performance, and how do we go about ahead?
So I have been like a very vocal critic of Koscielny in the last couple of years at least. I think his form has fallen off a cliff. He was always error prone till till he started playing with Mertesacker, and Per and him, when they played, they've always had a very good record. But
Mm.
he always used to make like one mistake in a game,
Yes.
which either cost us or didn't cost us. So I felt after this Achilles injury that he had, and the whole the setback of missing out on the World Cup, and then his teammates going on to win the World Cup, I think
Mm.
he'd be done. And so props to him for coming back. I think I was very critical of him on the Southampton game, where he was at fault pretty significantly.
Mm.
Kind of like colliding into Leno and like his hand hitting Leno and stuff. I mean, you can blame Leno, but he caused that situation. So again, very impressed. Shades of the old Koscielny today. He one of the things that Koscielny does that irritates me a lot is that he comes out of defense unnecessarily. A
Mm.
lot of the time, a guy like Rob Holding has been very successful with Arsenal is because he knows when to sit and he knows when to come out. He doesn't like charge up the pitch when we are playing a high line. And Koscielny has been caught out doing that a lot of the time. He didn't do that
Mm.
today. He
Mm.
didn't like unnecessarily just charge out and then leave space behind him. I think having Socrates as his partner has helped a lot. So Koscielny's playing well, but he has the captain's armband, but the real leader of the defense is Socrates.
Correct, correct.
You just saw him, like the guy was
Yes.
celebrating a goal kick, winning a goal kick, right? I mean, that's what you want to
Yeah.
see. Like who was the last center half that we had, had that kind of a mentality, who actually like loved defending. So, I think Papa's kind of vibe has kind of spread through that backline. I mean, we had
Backline.
Kolasinac today, who was like shoving Pedro off the ball with a shoulder
Oh
charge.
yes, I saw that.
He
Yeah, we saw
physically
that.
dominated N'Golo Kante, which is not easy to do. And it's good to have that kind of a backline. And I think Koscielny kind of thrived off that today. He scored the second goal. I know it came off the shoulder, but they all count.
Yeah, there's a
And
shampoo. There's a shampoo that he's going to launch.
yeah, and he's grown his hair out. So
Yeah.
keep the hairstyle, Lolo. I mean, it works for you. So kudos to him. I mean, I don't think he can play every game. I think he can play the big games. But I'm not, no criticism from me. I mean, I man of the match for sure.
Correct. And here's the if you can see the and the Koscielny shampoo.
Yeah, I approve of that.
Well, the back line, as you said, reminds me of Hector Bellerin, who just came in, had a spell off on sidelines, and then comes in, and then that horrific injury again morning. I saw it. I thought it was ACL, but it's LCL. But that still means that he will be sidelined. So feel bad for the guy who was good last night, actually.
Yeah.
And
Ye-
Ashley Maitland-Niles has to start there. It means that Ashley Maitland-Niles has to start as right back.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I feel gutted for Hector. I mean, he was having such a good season. He does a lot more than people think. He gets a lot of stick, when he doesn't put a good cross in, but he has improved upon that as well. But
Hmm.
he also is one of our most vital players when it comes to build-up play. That
Yes.
people don't realize. People don't realize the amount he contributes. Like this season, I've noticed that he started playing this like this ball around the corner with a little bit of spin, to set off a player. And he did that for the Oba goal versus Spurs, the equalizer. For
Hmm.
Ramsey, he did that
Hmm.
today a couple of times to set Oba free. So and then he can cut inside with the ball as well. So
Hmm.
that's very rare as far as fullbacks are concerned. And I think with consistent minutes, he can go on to be a truly elite player. And so this injury comes at the worst possible time for him and for us.
Right.
I
Yeah.
first time they said ACL, then I heard LCL, then somebody said it may be a quad tendon or something. Either ways, whatever it is, I mean, we're not doctors here, but he's going to be out for a while. In under no circumstances can we start Lichtsteiner. I mean,
I
when
was
we
coming
signed
there.
when we signed Lichtsteiner, I thought it would be like a good backup for Hector
Yeah.
and stuff, but
Yeah.
that's it's just not possible. I mean, maybe in the Europa League, but I what I liked about Emery's post game comments today was I think he kind of identified the supporting hierarchy to Hector Bellerin. He said, we have Ainsley, we have Lichtsteiner, and I haven't forgotten about Carl Jenkinson.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I would
Yes.
actually promote Carl Jenkinson over
Hmm.
Lichtsteiner.
And
But
Carl
I think,
Jenkinson, by the way, yeah, Carl
yeah,
Jenkinson, by the way, even though he's played 4 games, we haven't conceded a goal. Whatever those games were, maybe against smaller sides, but he's had his share, and we have conceded zero with Carl Jenkinson. That might be some factor considering for some games at home against small teams if Hector's not available, right? The Cardiff game that's coming up, which is sandwiched between the United game and the City game, could be a good one for Jenkinson, by the way.
yeah, I mean Jenkinson, you know, has this like you can get a little extra out of him when he plays for Arsenal because of just how much he loves the club. He's like you've seen that photo of him with the Arsenal bed sheets and bed
Yes.
covers and
Yeah.
everything and stuff, and he seems like the sort of guy who would like who bleeds Arsenal, and you can always expect him to give 150% just because he's a gooner, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, I think just feeding off of that, he probably deserves to start ahead of Lichtsteiner. He's not a long-term solution. I think Maitland Niles has all the characteristics. He's, to be a successful right back till Hector comes back. I mean, obviously, he won't give you everything Hector did, but he's competent enough. We are going to have to compensate for the creative side of what Hector used to do by Una is going to have to come up with some other kind of solution. But it's so Hector's a miss, but he's not. I don't think he's as huge a miss as people think it is. Like right back is not a debilitating position that will that makes or breaks your season. Striker is
Hmm.
key
Hmm.
midfielder is like if Torreira was to touch wood go out for the season, then I would write I probably wouldn't watch a couple of games out of depression. But
Clearly, yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's
Hmm.
that's that's what I think
Hmm.
on the right back situation.
And Torreira went down, by the way, touch wood, and he was all right. But like you said, the striker role, and Lacazette was once again there when it mattered, and he took the ball brilliantly, controlled it well, got past a few players, and then just had that shot at the near post, which he's been doing. I saw him do that against Cardiff
Yep.
as well. And that's the guy, that's lethal. That's Lacazette. He's been performing at the highest level. He's an elite striker, and you know what he can do in the box. He's shown that. So, should this be the regular starting 11? Obviously, Hector's gone for some time, but bearing him, Ashley Maitland-Niles, should this be the ideal formation going in the other games, going forward in the games ahead?
Definitely in the big games. I mean, my only concern with the two striker with the two striker formation is that, when you substitute, the drop off from Oba and Laka is so big to Eddie Nketiah. That's the only thing that concerns me, right? If we had Welbeck, I would be like, yeah, go about it. That's the way to go, because Welbeck, he's like kind of like a cult figure at both United and Arsenal. People, Vele, and you call him that, we call him that and stuff, and he's universally loved.
Yeah.
But he's a very good backup striker, man. I mean, he's probably the best
Yeah.
presser in our team. We won the FA Cup in 2017 against Chelsea because of Danny Welbeck, because of his relentless pressing. His movement completely destroyed the backline that day, and he doesn't get enough credit for that. And he can play left wing, he can play striker, he can play right wing. So if he was still around, he wasn't out for the season, I would say two strikers is the way to go. It may still be the way to go, but my concern is just, what if Laka has a bad day and you need to maintain the same formation? Is Eddie Nketiah the guy who's going to come in and provide you with that same piece of magic that Lacazette did today? As far as Laka is concerned, I've always liked Laka. Huge supporter of Lacazette. I think he is technically very, very sound. We saw that today. He had 3 touches on the ball. I think Alonso had no idea that he was going to go for that shot. He was kind of, I think he was expecting that. First, I don't think he could get it. He thought that Laka could get out of his feet. When he did, he didn't think he was going to shoot. He probably thought he was going to cross it, for someone to tap it in. And then before you knew it, the ball was past Kepa. So, very, very impressed with Laka. Big game player. He pops up with very, very important goals. He even scored against Atletico Madrid last year, and it's near impossible to do. So I guess this is the way forward. But my only caveat there is, what happens if one of those are out of form? I think Unai will then consider a shape change and stuff when he substituted Laka today. So,
and that takes me to an off-field issue, by the way. So that's kind of the game. 2-0. We didn't allow them shots, and we were clinical enough. Apart from the Hector injury, and Ozil was on the bench.
One more thing. Yeah. So one thing that I did want to highlight, which is in my notes, is the biggest thing that I saw today. Apart from the defense being good and the way he set up with the diamond and everything, and with Ramsey marking Jorginho, is in the big games against Spurs and against Liverpool and against Chelsea today. When was the last time you've seen our strikers tracking back and winning tackles inside our own defensive half? Oba won 3 tackles today. Lacazette was in the box, kicking balls out when Chelsea were trying to create pressure. That's the kind of work ethic that is required at this level now to be able to, win games. And although we sat back in the second half, can you really blame Unai Emery for that? You're 2 goals up.
Absolutely not. 38% possession only, but that's okay. 2 goals up.
Right. You conceded 63% possession. I don't think that's ever happened at the Emirates and won. Maybe against Bayern. When we beat them 2-0. But they had plenty of chances, right? In that game. I'm not going to fault him for that. If that's what it takes to get the 3 points. He showed that he can press them off the park in the first half. So if he decides to sit back in the second half, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, exactly. 2-0 win, stinking of shithousery injected in my veins. My friends and my co-host posted this on Twitter, and that's right. The result matters. We've been through those times where we dominated, we had the possession, but we didn't have enough to show for our chances created. We have absolutely 0 goals. I still remember those times, 9-10 and 7-8-9-9-10 games there against big sides where we actually had possession, where we actually created, but we didn't score. And what we had to hear, where are the goals, by the way? Where are the goals? The line is all that people look at, and that's what I did. So good points, some very good points there, and you're becoming a favorite here, by the way. The first got really some good organic comments from people, and that's why we are doing this second episode, and we are going to obviously do a third one next Sunday. But let's just come quickly to an off the field issue with our
Sure.
scout Sven Mislintatna. And again, like we last week, where we said that the build up to the West Ham game was Emery coming out and saying we don't have funds. Well, the build up to this game was Sven leaving, and that kind of had all of us concerned, like what is going to be the response. But we actually won. But now let's highlight the issue. What's gone wrong there between Raul, Sven, and Emery? And I think Emery
Yeah.
for this, yeah, but Sven and Raul, yeah.
So when the reports first came out, I thought it was just rumors and stuff. But then you had like people like Rafa Honigstein kind of coming out and corroborating that story and saying that, yeah, he's definitely on his way out and stuff. I'm it's a power play, so after kind of parsing through all everybody's version of the stories, first like Legrove reported it, and then he puts his own spin on it, then Arsblog reported it, and then Honigstein came out, and then the Telegraph reported it and stuff. So after kind of I went through all of those, and then it's almost like a Chinese whisper till you get to the point where the reality is probably somewhere in between all of those. I'm not okay with that. Like, this is not the time for power play. So it's clear that I said Rahul Rahul Sanley
Yeah.
has made a power play to be the main man. There was we spoke about having such a good structure where Rahul Sanley has, he knows the European market, and he has that Barcelona experience. And then you have Vinay Venkatesham, who's taking care of the commercial side of things. And then you had Sven, who was going to unearth all these diamonds in the rough for us, and we needed to do that because we needed to be able to sell well, like Liverpool have done. But clearly, there's a clash of philosophies here. I think the talk is that Sven has identified targets, but then Raul overruled them. Raul and Emery have their own targets that they want. Raul has his contacts with certain connections with certain agents that he wants to leverage and stuff. See, I've said that I like the fact that we are self-sustaining club and everything. Just being, pivoting to this new model, we may still operate under that self-sustaining model, but now we are going to use agents instead of great, scouting and database scouting. That feels a little off to me, I mean, and this is not the time to do it. That's my point. If this was going to happen, they could have waited till the summer and then parted ways. But we know that Sven is that kind of a character. He's like a no bullshit. If I'm not happy, I'm going to leave. He had a fallout with Thomas Tuchel at Dortmund, and it was the same kind of. He wanted certain players. They had agreed a deal for Oliver Torres, and then Tuchel pulled out of it and stuff. And then on principle, he decided to leave the club. So Sven has a history of not getting along, but there's a blogger. He appears on the Arsenal Vision podcast called Poznan in My Pants. He wrote a really good blog that I was reading the other day, where he said that there's in order to be successful, you need to have order and chaos both. And Sven was that that sort of chaotic person, kind of wearing jeans and hanging out in bars and hanging out with fans and stuff. And Raul Sanley was very prim and proper and stuff. And that could have been like a very good yin and yang sort of a combination. But I'm definitely not happy with it. I mean, I respect Sven's decision. I had hoped it never happened, but I don't think this is a good move unless you replace him with unless you suddenly you have this network of agents that starts delivering unknown talent. Sven did some good work. I mean, he fell back on what he knew as far as some Dortmund players are concerned. But then who's going to blame you? You've been bought in, and then you have to use a winter transfer window to do some work. You're going to kind of fall back on what you know. But then in the summer, he came up with Torreira, he came up with Guendouzi, and you can't say that those aren't good prospects. They both worked out. Leno, Leno, for has more or less been successful, right? I mean, look at him today. No errors, no issues.
Hmm.
Very comfortable playing the ball out of the back. So largely, the players he's found, has been successful, and it's a pity that it's come to this point where he's leaving the club. Uh,
Is it?
but it is what it
And
is.
also, there's one more thing that I read. Uh,
Yeah,
there's one point there where suddenly he has his connections. Sven has his data for bringing in players. And has he been snubbed for the technical director role, which
correct.
he was going to be offered? That's one point I heard.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So that's a point that we didn't discuss. Yeah. So I guess we are about to appoint a technical director, and Edu has been linked, right? And
Hmm.
and then today I read that Mark Overmars has been linked
Yes,
with that role
correct.
as well. I don't know how that would work out, but I think that's a little ambitious of Sven, right? I mean, he's a scout. We don't know his quality. We know he's a really good scout or chief scout, but we don't know how he would do as a technical director. And I think the club's just unwilling to take that risk with someone like Sven. Will he be able to make that step up? So I think that's part of it. But I think it's a combination of him not getting that position, and also the fact that Raul probably thinks that we can use his agent contact. So
Hmm.
not happy about it at all. I hope that it won't end so soon with Sven, because I'm a big fan.
Correct.
But it is what it is. I wish him well.
These tweets that we see, where fans have their views, and people were pointing out how suddenly he has bought expensive players, and how Sven has bought those cheap players and then sold them for 100 million and above. And that's something concerning for me. But the form, but now on back with the 2-0 result, we have to carry on. And the next game is United at home, which is a
Hmm,
Friday night game.
hmm,
And we have to like sort of maintain that in the cup, because it's at Emirates. So I'm confident again, like I said last week, that Chelsea are at Emirates, United are at Emirates, and then we have Cardiff also at Emirates. Okay,
hmm.
three games where we could just build in that momentum going to City away, that awaits us, the tough test that awaits us. A few points on Higuain, the Higuain deal as well, for Chelsea, because Hazard's being playing there, and Sari was critical of his players in the post-match conference.
Exactly.
So, do you think Higuain solves that, or is he just an addition to the Torres and the Morata thing that went about at Chelsea?
Um, See, again, Sari is doing what I just said Sven did, right? Like, he's kind of falling back on what he knows. He
Hmm.
knows Higuain. He knows he's a goal scorer. He bought Jorginho along with him when he came. I honestly don't know if it'll work out. I mean, you know, every player has an adaptation time in the Premier League. He could come in, score a bunch of goals for the first few games, and then then the Premier League defenders will start figuring him out and stuff. He's also pretty old, and he's not in the best shape.
Hmm.
So those kind of players, you know, they don't work out. Either they just flop massively, or they get an initial spurt of goals, and then the physical demands of the game catch up with them in the Premier League, and they might get an injury, or they start regressing.
Hmm.
So from Chelsea have in the last couple of years sold very well. So I will give them that. If you look at them, I think they're probably the best sellers out of the top six, even more than Liverpool. If you look at the numbers, and I'm not sure about that, maybe them or Liverpool. But if I was uh, a sporting director at Chelsea, or I was Abramovich, I won't be looking to, I guess a loan signing is fine, but I don't know. I don't know enough. I think Higuain could. It's an on the fence thing. It's a risk. If he works out, he'll fire them into the top four. If he
Hmm. Hmm.
doesn't
Hmm.
work out, then I think it'll get pretty bad. And what he did today in the press conference is is like borderline Mourinho-ish. Right? Towards the end of Mourinho's reign, he was like throwing his players under the bus, left, right, and center. I mean, even today he did
Correct.
some interview on beIN Sports during the game where he said that he wasn't backed by United and stuff like that, and which is a classic Mourinho.
Yes, yeah,
Uh,
actually, and good that you pointed that out
yeah,
because although that's not a part of Arsenal versus Chelsea, that's something that's trending, and I've
yeah.
seen my United a few fans discuss that. Obviously, they have he's a polarizing figure where some say that he wasn't back, some say that he was a mainly responsible for the toxicity, part of the problem that needed to be thrown out, and like he said, he indirectly pointed out to Paul Pogba and referred to likes of Paul Pogba, right, saying that these star players are something. It's been totally different. If it was United from Sir Alex Ferguson's time, Paul Pogba would be some out of the club by now.
He was right.
Yeah, he
He
was.
was in
Yeah,
Alex Ferguson's time.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah, go on.
yeah, I mean that's Jose for you, man. What did United expect when they recruited him? I mean, that he was going to come in and become like a legacy manager like Ferguson. They hired him for results.
Correct.
I saw a lot of United fans kind of who were like, who were the fuck off Mourinho crowd. Uh, they changed the tack to like, Jose will adapt to the United way and stuff, and that three trophy
Season, yeah.
year, yeah,
16,
was good,
17.
and they kind of built up their expectations on that. But his style just doesn't work anymore. He needs to realize that the he came from an era, he managed in an era where that worked for him at Chelsea. It worked for him till he was at Inter. But now we just have this new generation of players, and there's so much money in the league, and there's so many transfers being done which are 100 200 million, between that range, that the players aren't going to take that authoritarian kind of figure. You have to, you more and more we are seeing that head coaches are being more successful, right?
Correct.
Look at Pep and Klopp. They are coaches before they are managers. Unai's his title is head coach, it's not manager. So
Correct.
Mourinho's is a dying breed of legacy managers, and that methodology just does not work in the Premier League anymore. I had said this when he had first picked his fight with Pogba, that United just spent a huge amount of money on Paul Pogba. They wanted him to build the team around Paul Pogba, and when it comes to confrontation, they're not going to get rid of Paul Pogba. Mourinho is more dispensable than him. I mean, it's exactly what happened. And now
Exactly.
he's trying to kind of make excuses for that. I guess Jose can do that and stuff, but coming back to Sarri, I don't think Sarri has the credibility to be able to call out his players the way he's calling them out. Like he literally said that this is a very tough bunch to motivate. I'm going to go and speak to them and see if you guys do you have it to play for Chelsea and stuff like that. That doesn't work in the long run. I mean, he'll be gone if he continues like that.
Also, one more thing, Maras, you see, we actually discussed about this season being a wash and
Yeah.
like to expect very less from this. But then the games against Southampton, Brighton, West Ham, if you see 9 points, 1 point out of 9, and seeing the position where we are in right now, 44, and just 3 behind Chelsea. Some wins there would have just taken us above Chelsea and just close to Spurs. Well, will that hurt us towards the end of the season?
Yeah, it will. Absolutely. It hurt us with Arsenal. I mean, in the Arsenal's last 2 years, I mean, the first year we finished out of the top 4, it was by 1 point, right? Or,
One or 2 points to 16,
yeah,
17. Yeah, correct.
right?
Liverpool won their game and we also won against Everton, but it wasn't enough. Yeah, correct.
Right. So even in that season, like one result either way could have tipped our future. I mean, even last year we had a couple of games where it could have gone either way. I think these games will catch up with us. You increasingly are needing more and more points to qualify for the top 4. There are points being put up for top 4 qualification that would have won the league maybe 5-10 years ago in the
Hmm,
Premier League.
hmm, hmm,
So
hmm.
so that's
Correct.
that's the standard we are at right now.
In the
And
Premier League.
yeah, and that's what I meant by it being a wash, right? This season for us is going to be massive ups and massive downs as well. And that's basically Unai Emery figuring out the Premier League, figuring out his best 11, and getting his concepts and methodologies through to the players. So while I get that, we could have done with a win at Brighton, we could have done with a draw at Southampton, you
Hmm,
know,
hmm.
or even a win there. These I expected these things to happen. Hopefully we can put together another run. But even if we don't make it this year, I'll be fine. I'll be okay with that. I'll make my peace with that, as long as
Hmm.
we can build up a squad to
Absolutely.
challenge next year.
And I hope we spend wisely whatever's
Yeah.
happening, because it's time to stay calm and stay collective and not let the others ruin the peace inside the club, which actually happens a lot because Arsenal are a talking point. If this was Spurs, media would back them and there would be no headline saying disaster at the club, something like that. But when it's Arsenal, they are all over us, and we need to take care of that. Well, we've discussed everything. We've discussed the game, we've discussed Koscielny, Lacazette, we've discussed Sven Mislintat situation, and Raul Sanlehi. Then we've also gone on and spoken about Sari and what his players are experiencing going on to United and Jose. Well, just before we finish, Liverpool had this 4-3. There were two games that ended
Hmm.
4 today, last night, by the way, Saturday night.
Hmm.
And um, one was Wolves versus Leicester, and one was Liverpool versus Crystal Palace, where Liverpool actually lost Milner, then went 4-2 up,
Hmm.
and then Meyer had that goal. Probably if Mane wouldn't have scored, Milner's goal would have been an equalizer and a dent in their title race. Do you see Liverpool still go on and get the big prize, or are there cracks appearing now?
See, if Liverpool had won at City, the title race was over. Okay,
Hmm.
that's a kind of gap that nobody makes up.
Hmm.
I'm still on the fence a little bit, but
Hmm.
they are proving week in and week out that there's Klopp is being able to motivate them and kind of manage them to the title. I think the biggest thing he's done this year is he's if you look at some stats, they are not pressing as intensely as they were in the past few seasons, because that hurt them.
Hmm.
They used to come out of the blocks being this intensely gagging pressing team, and would overwhelm teams in the first 20 minutes of games, as we've learned. uh, you know and and then in
Those
the
hurt,
back
yeah.
end of the season, they would like start collapsing, like they would give up. They would lose the match that you'd expect them to win, like easily and stuff. So he's kind of managing the league really well this time. He's kind of the Van Dyke effect has been pretty good. I mean, he's just come in and kind of single-handedly fixed their defense.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did not
Yeah.
expect that. Like I will come out and say that I expected Van Dyke to feel the pressure of his price tag a little bit, but he has proved proved me wrong, proved a bunch of other folks wrong. The gap with City is not big enough to say that these guys will that Liverpool will win the league. I mean, you know, having said that, I think both their defenses are creaking a little bit right now. So I think it'll be very close.
Hmm.
I'd probably wait till February, end of February, March before calling it. But
And that's correct, because United and Liverpool face off in the final week of Feb, the final
yeah,
Sunday. United versus Liverpool. That could be a tiptoeing point in the season. Well, just one more thing, like before we go, one more thing is
yeah.
our transfer rumors, Arsenal's transfer rumors. There is the manager comes out and says he can't sign players. There have been links with Denis Suarez. Is he going to be one of those players who's on a snail and not going to make it's like Higuain. James Rodriguez has been linked for a 3 million loan deal, but I don't see why he should come in when he's the exact same type of player where what Ozil is. Then you've got we were linked with Banatia, but that was just for a few days or something. Didn't really catch the news. So, have you heard some transfer buzz? Do you see us closing in on a couple of deals before the this window?
Dennis Suarez looks the most likely. I think every week you hear something new about him. Like this week we heard that everything is agreed, but Barcelona want to play him in as many cup games as possible before they let him go, which is stupid. I don't get that. And I
Typical.
think that's like completely unfounded. The other thing I heard, which may be more plausible, is that Barcelona are also looking to offload Malcolm, and if they offload Malcolm, then they'll keep Suarez. So I'm good either ways. Why don't we go in there and say, like, give us either Suarez or Malcolm, right? We'll make it easy for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With an option to buy.
Yeah, and Malcolm, he could do a job for us.
Hmm.
The other is that James rumor. I guess that's probably just agent talk. The James thing makes, but I think Kike Marine came out and said that that we're looking at James as well if we're able to offload Ozil. In the unlikely event that this happens, it would make sense because James would be on lower wages than Ozil, and you're effectively freeing up wages for another player. But I don't expect that to happen. I think it's a little too aggressive of a rumor for us at this time. Benatia, I think the talk was about Benatia was if Juventus want to accelerate the Ramsey transfer and want him in January, they might use Benatia as a make weight for us. Personally, I don't like this Benatia link up. I think we have old enough center halves in our club. We just I don't think he would add any
Yeah.
value here,
Yeah.
and then you're adding another 30 plus guy to our
Well,
team, and then you need, and
yeah.
then all of a sudden your entire defense ages at the same time. That's not good strategy at all.
There was like you said, the agent talks. There was some saying Benatia, then there was some saying Khedira, and Arsenal fans were like, please forgive us, just take Ramsey, don't give us Khedira, keep extra money as well if you want,
Yeah,
but don't give us
if this was
yeah.
2000 and if this was 2012 13, I'd take them both, but no, not now.
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Khedira was linked to Arsenal a lot after
Yeah.
Ozil came as well, and when he was about to leave Madrid. But
Yeah.
I guess we pretty much summed up everything on this episode, and it's been another fun episode. Well, the first one got a lot of traction because
Yeah.
of it. The nature of the episode was such, and I have to say that the point that you covered on the Kroenke situation have really opened a few eyes. Like people just, I said, tend to flip and they don't know the situation. Well, then after that episode, many of them have come to me and said that they now know how the model works at Arsenal, how the owner is going on, because you see these stories doing rounds, and on Twitter you see these comments. LA, he's milking money out of the club and putting it into LA Ram, and that's just because when we lose, people tend to lose their shit, and all this goes around. So that's an evergreen episode, to be very honest. That's going circulating in FIOB and other places.
Yep.
So thank you once again. It's been this is becoming a trademark, I feel, and the new year, by the way. So
Yep.
I saw a comment on. I hope you have seen the previous video, by the way. Anish
Oh
Dutt,
yeah. I watched it. I
yeah,
watched the Angry Rant Man versus Anish Tata video. It's pretty good. I was one of the 7,000 views on that.
1,000, and it's nearing 1,400. By the way, I just checked, and that's what Anish. That was a crossover I had planned, but I was not sure we could execute. But then Arsenal versus Chelsea came about, and we had this episode with you, and then we discussed his possibilities of coming on. I spoke to him finally, got him here, and boom, the views have gone out of the roof. So Brantman's video has been a little thanda, like we say, a little down thoda after the when if you go on Twitter or if you see his YouTube, you will know.
It's still live, by the way.
I still live. Yeah, I know. We're
So
kind of
you might get him riled up after he watches this.
no, for all I know him, he I knew he wouldn't be shouting here. That's his
Right.
brand.
Right.
And there were some points like Ozil or Hazard, Sari or Emery, where Anish the 10 was had clearly got him. Like, but I managed to keep it civilized, and that could have gone. That could have gone off, but that's okay. So
Yep.
it's becoming a trademark. It's 20th of Jan here, 20th of Jan, Sunday morning live. It wasn't 6 a.m. today. It was 7:30, but it's still Sunday morning
Yeah.
live. And we hope we will see you the next Sunday as well, because this show is for those Arsenal fans who tend to flip, who have become post Ozil era fans, who are a little short on the facts. You won't believe, I had a comment last night saying that Arsenal were we destroyed ourselves in the 2010 to 2015 period. That was just a one-off opinion. I don't know how. So I just forwarded him your link, and there was more guy who actually said that Kranky this, Kranky that, so that evergreen episode helps. So Siddharth, I'm very happy to get you again. And next Sunday we could have we could be joined by another friend of mine from the Panenka view, Supratim, who is keen to get on the show with you. He was like, Siddharth Mehra should be a regular, man, and I please let's do a show with him every Sunday morning, like Saturday night in the US.
Yep. So
So,
time and schedule permitting, it's my pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for all the kind words. I mean, this is it's good to be able to have a forum to get your thoughts across and stuff. So thank
Mehra on the
thanks
spot.
for yeah.
Mehra
Thanks
on
for
the
that.
spot. Signing off this episode, let's post it everywhere and make sure we come back next Sunday. And let's hope that throughout the new year we can get like 48 or 50 episodes of Sunday morning live every Sunday. Fingers.
All right. Yep,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
here you go. Signing off.
Signing off. Come on, you gunners.